because young people are not stupid, as I just mentioned. So when we talk about things like music, and we at one point, you remember grime was the issue, and now it tends to be drill. Young people are looking at these things and thinking, well, if I can get a deal with Adidas or Sony or Virgin, or if I can make music through these particular labels, can this be a golden ticket for me to get out of the ends? Can this be a golden ticket that's going to get me out of the hood? And in most cases, of course. So do we blame young people for jumping in the booth, talking about shooting, killing, stabbing, misogyny, bitches, hoes, and all of these things you hear them talk about and promote? Do we blame them? Because in a wider capitalist society, all of these brands, including Netflix, Hollywood, BBC, all of these media stations seem to be profiting off all of these things. So do we blame our young people for engaging? The deeper question is, who's consuming it? And guess what? This is the harsh reality when we talk about racism and systemic violence. Those that consume it are not the individuals that are at the forefront and the victims of it. Who are the consumers? So when young people are talking about hurting and harming each other, we have to have the wider conversation about our society here. And in our society, we like violence. In our society, we like to buy violence. We like to consume violence. I like Netflix. I like Narcos. I like Breaking Bad. I like Sons of Anarchy. I like Ozark. I like Snowfall. I like Power. I like programs like this because it's entertainment. And just like the consumers that want these children and young people, our children and young people, to talk about their real life experience, it's just for entertainment. But the harsh reality is that young people then have to live their lives. And then we have to pick up the pieces within our local communities. So when we talk about the idea of the golden ticket, it's a deep conversation. It's a deep conversation. And these things become really important. So when we talk about accountability, we have to also start talking about these big brands that promote and allow and instigate our children and young people to join this. And I remember being on a show with the BBC not long ago, and I was asked, Craig, what do you think the reason for violence, in your local communities? Is it the teachers? Is it the parents? Is it the youth workers like us? I said, no, can we start with the BBC? Because you guys promote this type of stuff sometimes on your channels, and we don't. And I don't know why these people are always asking me for interviews. I'm sometimes the worst person to call, because I'm going to start with the powers that be first before I get to the local community, because there's accountability at all levels. But I think it's important to understand that young people are buying into that. And this is the problem. Because the problem that we're dealing with, the fact that the beef is amplified through social media platforms, through music, through uploading of particular videos. And there's an audience, but there's two audiences here. So there's one audience that we've just previously seen, but there's also another audience that exists within our community. Because if you disrespect me, let's say, I don't know, Sean disrespects me. I got Sean at the top of my screen. Sean disrespects me, and everybody else in the room is commenting, whether it's on Instagram, whether it's on YouTube. Everybody's commenting on what they think I should do, what they think Sean should do to me. And whilst you're all commenting on about how me and Sean are most likely going to play to the audience's requests, but regardless if you're from the local community or whether you're buying it solely from this consumerist perspective of just being a wider audience, you have a very powerful role to play in navigating and perpetuating these particular issues. So whilst I disrespect Sean because I want to get to Wireless, I want to get to V Festival, I want to get to BBC One Extra's next big party, I want to get to the next big event, I'm going to say whatever about Sean in the music booth in order for me to get there, problem is, however, is that the first audience is saying, yeah, but Sean lives up the road, Craig. So I know that you're trying to get to the big stage, but what happens when you see Sean in Birmingham City Centre? What are you going to do? What are you going to do when you're actually with your mum in the supermarket and you see Sean? What are you going to do? Because the audience now are going to dictate that Sean shouldn't take no disrespect from Craig whatsoever, and vice versa. And are these things are not we're seeing in our local communities, where video gets uploaded and somebody gets stabbed and shot? Are we not seeing that for every music video that gets uploaded? There's sometimes tit-for-tat shootings that happen in the local community. Most of the individuals that are now perpetrators currently serving life has mentioned that something around social media instigated some particular issue. So when we talk about the amplification of violence in our local community, we can no longer just keep saying that, you know what, it's just about the cuts contribute. But I think it extends the wider conversation, which I was alluding to in the beginning, that we're looking at violence from a default position. And that default position is highly punitive and very much a criminal justice lens. And all that means in the most layman terms is that we're sitting again within a criminal justice model. We wait for something to happen, then we respond. Very much reactive. It's not early intervention. It's not preventative in its true nature. We're just responding. And that's the reason why we feel like we're firefighting nationally. That's the reason why we feel like we're firefighting. Because looking at this issue of violence being a public health issue, I don't need to bore you with all of the data and statistics, but the World Health Organization in 2017 had argued this, following the issues in places like Chicago, following the issues in places like Baltimore, remembering that South Africa and Glasgow, and went to those particular places like your South Africas, your Baltimores and Chicagos and your New Yorks to understand how we can bring a public health approach. Because at that particular time, you remember that Glasgow at one point in time was a knife crime capital of Europe. Oftentimes you don't really hear about that again, the racialization of crime, the politics of race and crime. So we never really heard about that. And unless you're a person that knows about statistics and data, you'll know that what is oftentimes projected in the media is not close to what the statistical data says. But as we know, that the argument has always been that we need a public health approach to respond to this. And the only way we're going to respond to this is being or functioning from a model that is community-led and it's academically driven. So that goes back to my original point in the beginning, that when we're taking the position, what position are we taking? Is it just emotive? And that's why I made the point about sometimes that we enter into loads of different events and we come together as different bodies, and it's very emotive and it sounds great. We're all in the building and we're very passionate and the passion's amazing. But what's the approach and what's the model? Because Glasgow took an approach, they took a position, they said we're going to utilize this theoretical underpinning through public health and we're going to respond. Baltimore, New York, Chicago, South Africa did the exact same thing. They were going to use this theoretical approach and we're going to function this particular way of doing things throughout the community. What's our approach? Or are we still going based on, well, back in the day, I used to be this, or back in the day, I used to know such and such, and because I've been working in this field for all of these years, this is how I think. All of that sounds great, but it's not a foundation. Aspects, most definitely, but it's not a foundation, because we have to go based on what works. So we have to look internationally to then start to look at nationally and then locally. So locally, it says that in order for us for public health to work, it means then we have to use a community-led approach, which means then we need to start forming new partnerships. Sorry to tell you, we can't go this one alone. So it means then our organizations need to somehow start to connect and build partnerships. We need to somehow find a way. I'm not saying every organization needs to be friends and every organization needs to work together. What I'm suggesting is, in order to shake the status quo and have a radical change in responding to this issue, we have to work together as the community and within the community. We can't no longer sit from the ivory tower And we can't think from the statutory organizations that are out there that we're going to local authority our way out of this, because you can't. It needs the community. It needs grassroots knowledge. It needs people that have the reach. It needs people that are on the ground doing the detachment and outreach work to connect the dots to every single one of us.
The course is the Working with Gangs and Serious Youth Violence Level 3 course. It's an accredited programme which is accredited through AIM, formerly known as OCN West Midlands. We have 8 different modules to the programme, which basically is designed to give you a holistic understanding of working with young people impacted by serious youth violence and gangs.
These programs are important because what we're trying to recognise in the country is that there needs to be a standard, and a standard around recognising how do we respond to serious youth violence, how do we respond to all forms of criminal exploitation as it affects our children and young people and our wider families within the community.
I think the Gangs and Serious Youth Violence course was probably one of the best things I've done in the last decade, for sure.
It's been a great experience so far. I've met so many people from so many different backgrounds and professions, working really widely across the youth sector, and it's been really helpful to listen to other people's points of views and experiences.
It was the first course, it was a certificate that I'd had for a long time, something that I wanted. I now write programmes, so I've written a couple of programmes on gang awareness and prevention, knife awareness, self-awareness, bullying. So before I did the gangs course, if you would have asked me to do something like that, I would have told you, I ain't got a clue what you want about, how am I gonna do that? So for me, the course was amazing because it's just opened up lots of things that I didn't know that I could do, that I'm now doing.
Being an adult learner, number one, and someone who hasn't been in, necessarily formal education for a long time, coming into a course that had so many options to support you through your learning, it was quite clear when I started the course that the objective of the educators wasn't for me to just get through the course, but it was to make sure that the students understood and had a full understanding and a holistic understanding of the information.
I've been looking at courses to do with youth and gang violence for quite a long time now, and this one really stood out, A, because it's one of its kind, there's not many about, and secondly, the professionals that lead this particular course are outstanding in their field.
We work with a range of practitioners, people who are specialists within their fields, who have years of experience in working with young people that have their own specialisms as well.
Bringing people in with lived experience is a really important aspect, and that's something that's happened. I grew up in an environment where I've lived around serious youth violence and can say I've been a victim to that. Also having people from communities that are working every day in serious youth violence come in and deliver to the people on the course or the cohort. So I think it's unique in that sense because actually you're learning directly from people with experience.
The importance of having people like myself on this programme as recognised as one of the leading experts in the country around responding to serious youth violence, I think it kind of gives that USP to the course, that it means that the organisers that have developed this particular programme have really thought about who do we bring in to give those real insights.
I've always done little one-day courses and stuff like that, but yeah, they're nothing like this. This is the course that gave me more knowledge and more understanding of working with young people, especially serious youth violence.
I have not experienced a course like this before. I've been to uni, I've studied criminology, had probably two good lecturers, but this course was just different. It was like, I actually looked forward to like what the topics were, how I can apply it and stuff like that, and it was like a little family. It ended up being like a little family, everyone helping out each other.
This is the only qualification in the UK. In fact, we've been hard pushed to find this qualification anywhere in the world, and we know because we looked. There's no other qualification like it. It's a course that is very much rooted in the community. It's very much grounded around having that holistic understanding of actually how do you work with young people who are impacted by gangs and serious youth violence.
That's why this course will have people from the police force, from social workers, from people who are working as teachers, people working in PRUs, people who are in the youth offending service. Everyone comes to this course because there are no other courses like this.
I think a lot of professionals make an assumption as to what serious youth violence is, and I think a lot of professionals band children into the term gang, when actually there is a significant difference between children that are engaging in serious youth violence, gang members and organised crime groups.
We have 2 courses which cater for, I suppose, different types of circumstances. So we have our distance learning course, which enables you to study alone basically. Go at this particular program, you get access to our portal, you get pre-recorded content, and you can just basically study this program by yourself. And that program is open all year round. The blended learning course currently runs once a year. So we usually start the course in and around April time, and it lasts until November, December. But the blended learning gives us the option to, work with other people and also get those lectures live. So that's whether that's live online or as well face-to-face. So it's that blended learning experience that we offer through our certificate program.